Aloha, thank you for joining us for 3:00 p.m. Committee on Education. Today is Monday, March 28th, 3:00 in hearing room 229. This meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You will find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page at the legislature's website. This Zoom meeting and YouTube live stream event will include the 3:00 p.m. agenda for this Committee on Education. In the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to major technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Wednesday, March 30th, 2022 at 3:00 p.m. and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. I'd like to take this time to remind our testifiers that due to time restrictions on our hearings, we will be limiting testimony to 1 minute per testifier per bill. For people participating remotely, please remain muted and video disabled until shortly before it is your turn to testify. When I call your name, unmute yourself and your time will begin. After your minute is completed, staff will mute you so that we can move this hearing along in an orderly and efficient manner. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the members of my committee. To my right, Senator Drew Kano. I'm sorry, to my left, Senator Drew Kaniha, and at the far end, Senator Kurt Favela. Members, we have 2 items on our agenda, and first is item SCR 9 and SR 3, requesting the Legislative Reference Bureau to conduct study of 2 potential dedicated sources of funding for public education. To testify, Charlotte Carter Yamauchi, providing comments. She's not here in person, I don't think. And also Jennifer Azuma Trupalik also provided comments. Members, are there any questions on this resolution or comments? I don't know if you've read the testimony. And just to be sure, IT, we have no one waiting to testify on this matter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. If no questions, I'm going to move on to the next item. Our GM Governor's Message 751, submitting for consideration and confirmation as the Executive Director of the School Facilities Board, Gubernatorial Nominee Chad Farias for a term to expire in 6 years after the confirmation date. Members, testimony from Keith Hayashi, please, Superintendent.
Aloha, Chair Kidani, members of the committee. Superintendent Keith Hayashi testifying on behalf of the Hawaii State Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of the nominee. Chad Keone Farias has an extensive background and intimate knowledge of our public education system, which I believe he can leverage in the position of the Executive Director for the School Facilities Agency. The department stands ready to answer any questions the committee might have, but we do stand in strong support of this nominee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Superintendent Hayashi. Next, we have listed Ed Sniffen. I do not see Ed here in the room. Is Ed on Zoom by any chance?
Not present, Chair.
Thank you. Ed Sniffen provided testimony in support. Is there a Stacy Iwatashi also present to testify? Thank you. Also on Zoom, we have Alan Oshima.
Good Good afternoon, Chair Kidani and members of the committee. I'll stand on my written testimony. I attached a letter in very strong support of Keone Farias for this initial executive directorship of the School Facilities Authority. We thank your committee and you, especially Senator Kidani, for all of your hard work in establishing this authority. And we look forward to having Keone serve as the first executive director, because I feel he has very strong leadership and background to guide this authority into success. I stand ready to answer any questions that your committee may have.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate your testimony and support. Welcome, Vice Chair Senator Donna Kim. Next to testify, Sherry Nakamura, Director, testifying on behalf of He'e Coalition.
Aloha Chair Kidani, Vice Chair Kim, and members of the committee. My name is Sherry Nakamura, Director of He'e Coalition. We stand on our written testimony in support of the nomination of Keone Farias as Executive Director of the School Facilities Board. We are thrilled that Keone is an educator who knows the DOE well. We look forward to Keone leading the SFA not only to provide funds for building renewal and new school construction, but also to establish a process to prioritize projects and to build a system of equity for our students. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Sherry. Members, we also have a bunch of written testimony, all in support of Keone Farias, about 25 or so testimonies. Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to testify? If not, is there anyone else in the room wishing to testify? Members, are there any questions of the testifiers? This is for GM 751 for the School Facilities Authority Executive Director Chad Keone Farias. No questions, members? If not,
Here.
I don't know, is Chad, I thought he was going to, Chad, are you on?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, thank you. Facilities Authority Executive Director. Chad, please proceed. Members.
Thank you. Aloha and mahalo to the Senate Education Committee for taking the time.
Excuse me, can whoever is speaking, please mute yourself?
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, but you got to turn down you're watching it on some.
Aloha and mahalo to the Senate Education Committee for taking the time. I'm not sure why I'm getting.
Excuse me, can whoever is speaking, please mute
You
yourself?
have to turn off your.
If you're watching it on another video or Zoom,
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hold
you
on.
got to turn down you're watching it on some.
I'm not. I only have one device on here. I'm not sure why I'm getting.
whoever is speaking, please mute yourself. IT, is there anyone else on that you're watching it on another video or Zoom?
Hi, Chair. Just Chad's microphone is on.
I'm not. I only have one device on here. Are you guys there?
Okay, why don't you try proceeding? It stopped.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure why I was getting that feedback. I'll begin again. Thank you, Chair Kidani, Vice Chair Mercado Kim. Aloha and mahalo for having this hearing for my confirmation today. My name is Chad Keone Farias, and I'm honored to be appointed by Governor Ige to serve as the first Executive Director of the School Facilities Authority. I have spent the last 45 years of my life in and around public and private education institutions. Of those 45 years, 30 years have been here in the state of Hawaii, serving as a teacher, vice principal, principal, and complex area superintendent. As you saw in my resume, My education degrees include a Bachelor's of History and Education from Loyola Marymount University, Master's of Occupational Studies from Cal State University, Long Beach, and a Master's from University of Hawaii at Manoa in Education Administration. I strongly believe that my years of service and my experience has prepared me to take on this new challenge and create a new path forward for education in Hawaii. I bring with me my relationships forged in school buildings, gymnasiums, playgrounds, and in the community. My record and accomplishments speak for themselves, but I'm most proud of my ability to bring people together to accomplish our collective goals. Taking the time to build common understanding and creating a culture of inclusivity and collaboration is how we will get things done in the SFA. I pledge to find the greatest talent and allow them to do what they do best. I believe in high standards that begin with me, the leader. Quality is a must. My transformative leadership and my ability to think in and out of the box will ensure our existing strengths shine while creating new opportunities to reimagine the use of our current assets. I believe that education in Hawaii requires a balance of public and private partnerships that create the best use of those resources. Let's build the facilities that our students, faculty, and communities deserve. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Chad. I think that completes the testimony. Members, just for a little background, Chad, also known as Keone, is currently the complex area superintendent for the Ka'u Ke'au Pahua complex on the Big Island. He's been an educator for almost 30 years in the DOE. He's also currently serving on the School Facility Agency Board as one of their 5 members. Notably, Keone has extensive educational background, having served as teacher, vice principal, principal, and CAS, all on Hawaii Island. He also has worked with his family's construction company, managing short and long-term rentals that they have constructed. So I will at this time ask our members if there are any questions of any of our testifiers or of Mr. Farias. Any questions? I have some questions let's see. Of Chad, please. Chad, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead, Chair.
As far as the duties for the duties and our SFA structure, in your response to questions, you noted the priority administrative positions that you're looking for. This committee certainly recognizes the need for the administrative report. And also, we're very interested in ensuring that the SFA structure has staffing that is capable of completing projects. Do you envision positions such as the Chief Financial Officer to be able to also handle operational functions, serving also as Deputy or Chief Operation Officer?
Yes, Chair. Thank you for that question. I recall extensive conversation with the SFA board on this exact position. We're hoping that this position can serve in dual roles, acting more as a deputy. And we're comforted in the MOC that's in place. And I also recall a conversation, I'll have this conversation with the board about this position, perhaps serving as an administrative services officer, an ASO. But yes, it would be for that dual role.
Thank you, Chad. Also, I wanted to comment that, being that the SFA is a brand new agency, I think it's critical for us to realize that the SFA would probably need to focus on some revenue generating projects at the onset to help us move along and accomplish what we are looking to do. So with that in mind, and you are currently a member of the board, how have you prioritized what the development of teacher housing or what their priorities are going to be? And how do you see that? How do you envision teacher housing, whether it's here on Oahu or on the neighbor islands?
Yeah, and thank you for the clarification between Oahu and the neighbor islands. I think teacher housing has emerged as #1 priority for the SFA board we're very fortunate to begin to look at various structures, mainly in Honolulu County around permitted uses, exceptions, permitted uses for different housing structures. Currently, we are looking for the solution, the most attractive way to get private partnerships involved with us, while also maintaining teacher housing that's cost effective and that ensures quality of life for our faculty, our staff, and our teachers. And notably, that these projects will look very, very different in the urban and rural setting. Having served here in Ka'ukiaupahua and having visited Hana, Molokai, Nanakuli, and Waianae, these will take unique solutions. Quite notably, the housing structures on Ka'u, Hana, and schools like Honoka'a, these rural areas where teacher cottages are maintained on DOE facilities. I believe for our rural areas, that is where we will begin and start to branch off, all while looking in our urban setting for projects that are attractive to investors to first start our private-public partnership in teacher housing.
Thank you, Chad. As you noted in your response to the committee, many of our school facilities are aging and in need of repair or replacement. One criticism of past efforts to improve our campuses is that it is typically a piecemeal effort, upgrading or building one structure at a time. Do you anticipate that SFA will be handling things differently?
Yes, the answer is yes. In having served in the DOE for 30 years, being very, very fortunate in my early years to help in the design and construction of both the Kea'au High School and Kea'au Elementary campuses, it was a tremendous benefit to me, seeing how these projects take off, how we work with private developers like Shipment Corporation, how we engage in the process of government bonds, etc. And then the next 25 years in my career, seeing us create lists, priority lists, and doing re-priority lists and every year reprioritizing what's on that list has resulted in piecemeal construction. One building here, one building there. Felt like trying to appease certain communities in time at the time to calm them down, never ever getting to the data-driven results that we're looking for. So my hope for the SFA, my goal for the SFA is that we look at data, collaborate with communities, collaborate with principals, collaborate with state leadership to build the facilities that our students deserve. Also notably, in looking at some of these tough conversations around building schools in areas of growth have turned out to be the easy conversations. What we haven't talked about is areas where there is low growth. How do we reimagine those facilities to reuse them for community support, for wraparound services, for multi-generational activities? And I believe that's the strength of the SFA and the beauty in this legislation.
Well, thank you for that response, Keone, because another aspect of the SFA is that it is empowered to look at school lands as assets to both the school and the DOE at large. There may be instances where redevelopment serves the greatest good for the state. So how do you foresee taking on this part of the SFA duties?
Yes. So I believe that question and the structure of that question is exactly why I wanted to be on the SFA board. And now that question is what excites me most about the ED position. Serving in the DOE, having served over the last 10 years, and specifically the last 6 years on a committee called the Committee on Weights. Committee on Weights statutorily has to meet every 2 years to come up with the formula of one. What is the value of one student based on the amount of money in the department? And the toughest question often brought up to the Committee on Weights is what is enough or what is not enough or what is too small to stand on its own. And so though the value of one is roughly around $5,000 per child with exceptions made for GT and ELL and economically disadvantaged. The struggle is when we have campuses that are 60, 70, 80 years old. That's not factored into the formula. principals do their best to make ends meet for these kids, and we've never factored in the cost of operating these facilities. And I looked at it on a case-by-case basis, usually 10 to 15 schools asking for extra money, an exception to the WSF, to maintain their facilities or keep their doors open. Certain schools in the state of Hawaii are too small to stand on its own and deserve an exception because of their geography and the distances students have to travel, but others are not. So we have to have that courageous conversation. What do we do with those properties? When you think of it as one property, might not be as daunting. When you start to look at 380 plus properties in the DOE, over 4,000 acres, and the average facility age is 65 years old, it can be very costly. So the SFA will tackle those conversations, do everything we have in our statutory obligation to do it, and engage the DOE on the conversations that are not. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chad. Members, just remind you too that the School Facilities Agency will be tasked with building new schools, building new buildings at an existing school, but the day-to-day R&M will still be in the hands of the Assistant Superintendent of Facilities, who is currently Randy Tanaka, who is in the audience today. And with that, members, are there any further questions? Senator Kim.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farias. Appreciate you being here and willing to serve. So are you going to be working in Honolulu or on the Big Island?
Yeah, as we stand up this agency, not knowing exactly where we're going to sit, but with the reassurance of the MOC, we'll get off the ground in my current, hopefully, with the MOC in my current office as I transition to work on those projects in Maui and Oahu. So specifically, will I reside on Oahu immediately? Probably not, but the work will be on Oahu, and that will be something that has to be moved on very quickly. So yes.
It is the intent to reside here at some point in Honolulu.
Yes, to work out of Honolulu, right.
Okay. Because while, of course, our neighbor island, very important facilities, important, the bulk of it is here on Oahu. And so one of the questions I have as you looking at the new schools, and I guess I'm confused with the R&M for the older schools, but there's this competition, it seems, on getting all the new schools, getting them state of the art, and yet a number of our old schools, have been around for so long, and their electrical wiring is old. I mean, Senator Michelle Kidani and myself are both graduates of Farrington High School, and the buildings there and the pool that is out of service have been there when we were there, and so it needs a lot of attention. How are you going to balance the needs of a number of the older schools with the new ones?
I think that's a very fair question. That's an excellent question, especially after Senator Kidani pointed out the difference with R&M and CIP. So this statute, when we look at new schools, those schools that we've been talking about on the EVA plane, needing 5 new elementary schools, or this year in the House bill that just crossed over to the Senate, elementary and middle school in Central Maui and a new high school in Kapolei, et cetera. So those are new facilities on state lands that either we have Title II or will be seeking Title IV. The SFA does allow, or the law does allow for new construction on older campuses, new construction of older facilities, reimagining of those facilities, looking for new uses, both school and community, and maybe even income generating on existing campuses. So if we're looking at a school like Farrington in need of buildings or what may seem like R&M, it may not be. It may be new construction altogether to lengthen the capacity and the life of that campus and to increase the capacity of that campus. So it's not just the repair of the pool. The SFA's authority would be in building a new pool.
Well, at this point, the plans are to move the pool eventually. I don't know if we'll ever get to it, but to put a new gymnasium, new buildings. And yet that plan has been on the books for a while now. What is the average cost of building a new school from scratch, like a new high school from scratch?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's one statewide average. The cost of construction varies from island to island. I do know the Kihei High School build is in the $250 million range, just looking at that project. So the presumption would be that we would start there. The capacity and the size of that school would matter also.
Well, my understanding is more like $300 million for that school, and that it's not an average cost. So again, is that kind of decisions going to be made? Like, do we look at what it costs to put a school in, or it doesn't matter what the cost is as long as you put it somewhere? Because then it impacts every other school. It impacts the money that's available for some of the older schools that would need some of that funding. And not only for the new buildings, but all of the bells and whistles that are going into the new schools as far as the technology, and the old schools don't have anything.
Right. So yeah, point taken. To answer your question, no, there won't be a frivolous spending or a no matter what it costs approach from the SFA. We will be looking at the most efficient means in developing these schools and the most efficient sites. I do know of certain projects on the books, have spoken with CASs and principals about schools being built in one area and sort of leapfrogging the other schools. So the students would pass an existing school to get to a new school that wants to be built. I believe the SFA will attract the talent, work with the DOE to talk about how we build these schools using what we have in our authority, but engaging the DOE with what they need to do in their authority, which comes to boundaries and different geographical boundaries for schools in looking for what makes sense, looking to what makes the most sense. But you're right, that type of coordination has been done. It may have been done well in certain projects and not so well in others. And it's usually when we start talking about what do we do with our aging facilities, people and the community automatically think of school closure or school consolidation. And that's far, though that is something that might need to be addressed at certain points. Oftentimes it's not. How do we reimagine the facilities we have, co-locating these facilities, attracting private partnerships and other government services to co-locate on our campus to make it feasible to keep these campuses open.
Okay, finally, what is your position on portables?
It's been my whole life here on Hawaii Island. We're so fortunate that we have that ability. I'm thinking of 2015 when we had to temporarily move Keonipoko Elementary to Keao campus. So I guess my answer is I love portables for the purpose it serves, but they should be temporary facilities.
And what is temporary for a
They
portable?
should be temporary, right?
What is temporary? What's the time frame that considered temporary? Because I know we have portables that have been there for 20 years, if not longer. Is that portable, temporary?
Well, so I wouldn't say 20 years is temporary. Again, I do know there are certain existing circumstances that have kept portables open. I'm not a fan of portables. I taught out of them for quite a number of years. And so, no, in the case of Keonipoko, we had it for a year and it went back. That was very costly. I get that. And we kind of had a FEMA blank check at the time, maybe not blank check. We did have some FEMA assistance at the time, so we were able to do it. I wouldn't want to see portables used for longer than the construction of new facilities.
So is
with
it your
average
intent
25.
then to review all of the portables across the state to see how long they've been there? And that if they've been there over a certain period of time, shouldn't we be considering what's the alternative? Should it be a permanent building? Or, I mean, again, if we're not going to analyze it, if we're not going to look at it, you're going to build it and forget about it and justify that, you know, we're going to have all these portables at every beach and every place else. And then, you know, while we await 3 new schools that we don't know when is going to come online.
So fair question. And no, it wasn't my intention to do that at first, but since you asked that question, it will be front of mind in asking those questions about portables. Again, I feel very passionate about it. I love that it served its purpose when we need it. And I have the experiences of teaching in there and the discomfort of what that looked like for me and my students. So it will be front of mind, and I will engage Randy Tanaka in that conversation and use and leverage those numbers to help us get
Thank
our new
you.
construction done quicker.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that there's good use for portables, but it is considered portable, temporary, and it's not supposed to replace something permanent. So thank you.
Right. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Senator. Further questions?
Chair,
Senator Favela.
yeah, Senator Kim, my dad said temporary permanent. That's what we have in Campbell right now, temporary permanent classrooms, been there for over 20 years. My thing is, when the DOE chooses a site to build, and this is with Ho'opili, let me go with Ho'opili first. Ho'opili started the development, and they were supposed to start on Alone Farm side by Kahimohala, that area that they're starting kind of movement now. The reason for them going where they went was because they said the infrastructure was there already and they built Honolulu Middle School. Okay, it's fine. But in that time that we was waiting for a new high school location, Gentry built 78 to 80 homes on the lot that we thought it was the blast zone, that they wasn't going to build anything there. So when we asked the DOE about this property, we could not build a school there on Fort Weaver Road because it was considered the blast zone when Honolulu West Lock would blow up. But I'm asking this is because Kihei right now has a school that is being built on a property that did not meet the DOE standards, but it went ahead and started it anyway. So can you give us an idea of what is the standards that a regular school that is being built by the DOE have to have the minimum requirements? Do you know?
Yeah, so I've read numerous studies that suggested a high school should have 50 acres or 55 acres, et cetera. Those studies have become sort of obsolete. We've looked at models around the country of vertical schools with a much smaller footprint, if that's what you're asking. In terms of Kihei High School, I don't know the details. I don't think I want to know too many of the details except to learn from what was done so we don't do it again. I think the beauty of the SFA or the legislation that has created the SFA is to create that layer to really ask those tough questions, to come together with developers, private, public partners, and communities to ascertain what they need and want for our students. And I think maybe I know that's where we have gone wrong in the past. While I want economy of scale, while I want to look for the most efficient most efficient ways of building schools, I do understand the need to engage communities so that we have the schools that they want and need. Yeah, so no, I think we need to look at a varying degree or varying type of models that is not just Hawaii based. What we did was we looked at the successful schools and we tried to say, if Waikea and Kea'au and Farrington have 40 plus acres, that a high school gotta have 40 plus acres of land. So no, I think we need to engage conversation around that so we can start building these projects that make sense.
And just going forward, letting you know that, I mean, we're the largest school in the state of Hawaii, and we're not anywhere near in not growing. So I like the idea that you open to private partnership and other things, because I know we're not going to ever get another $37 million building. So I threw this a lot over the occasions, and Principal Lee and other people in the community suggested the same thing over the last 10 years. We have a library that is on our property that we want to start the conversation in swapping private partnership, dissolving the library, giving it to the school at Campbell High School, because the library is very, very underutilized and the students only have certain time to use it. They have to come with their own, they have to have their own librarian, and they have to have their own time. So I hope you open to that, and going forward, please start the conversation with Principal Lee. Another one is that we have a big community park across the street that is very, very underused. Going forward, if we could start making a conversation that if we can acquire that, maybe a MOA just between 5:30 or 5 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night, so that the school can use the facilities because we have no tennis courts. We have no place because they're going to start fixing our football field after 50 years of the school. We're finally going to have a new football field. So the football player is not going to have any place to practice. So this is something that I think we should start the conversation now before December comes and we have no place for our kids to practice football, because Illinois is already working on the fact that they're going to have their 6th grade wing. So I ask you if you can start those conversations. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, Chair. Thank you. Looking forward to working with you closely. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair.
Senator Cavella.
Members, if no further questions, I'm going to ask for a short recess. Calling the Committee on Education back to order. Members, thank you. The recommendation of the chair is going to be to defer SCR 9 and SR 3 based on the testimony of the Legislative Reference Bureau. Any questions? Thank you. And for GM 751, recommendation of the chair is to advise and consent to the nomination of Chad Farias as the Executive Director of the School Facilities Board. Members, questions? If not, chair votes aye.
Chair recommends advise and consent on GM 751. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator De La Cruz. Excuse, Senator Kanuha. Senator Favela.
Aye.
4 members, all voting aye, 1 excuse. Recommendation is adopted.
Congratulations, Mr. Farias. This meeting is adjourned.